Welcome back to the Upshots two-part special on Eric Cantona. This is part 2. I'm Jack Rivlin. Zach Sweeney-Lynch is here.
Hello, Jack.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
And we are also joined by our Emmy, George Cooper.
Bonjour, ça va?
That was a very shit bit of French. Parlez-vous. Welcome, George.
Hi, mate.
So listeners will remember that in part 1, we left Eric Cantona on a rotating bed in Paris, where he was busily tucking into a threesome with his pal, while United Security Chief Ned Kelly watched on. Ned actually says that it was in France where Eric did a lot of his naughty business. So apparently whenever he was in England, he wouldn't do much extramarital stuff, apart from, I think we talked about that members club where he was having an affair. He said that was like the rare time where he would misbehave in England. Otherwise, he preferred to do his philandering in France because the privacy laws mean that the newspapers can't talk about it. So
Is it also because he was living with his wife in England?
a 2 up, 2 down. Yeah. Good point, actually. I don't know. Either way, he's mainly getting down to it. But when he's back in England, away from the rotating beds of Paris's seedy underground, Eric is banging them in for United. So United have won their first league title in 92-93, and he just picks up where he's left off. He's like the creative genius in the United side. We all know all those famous goals he scores. You know, favourite is that chip where he then just celebrates with the shrug. 93 is when he first wears his collar up as well in the Manchester derby. So that iconic look starts there. And he then becomes United captain and leads them to the double in 1994. So he's won back-to-back league titles. He's won the FA Cup.
Back to back because he won it with Leeds as well, didn't he?
And the season before in France, he'd won it with Marseille before he got sent on loan to Nîmes. So he'd won the league title, Marseille, Leeds, 2 United ones in a row.
Wow.
Amazing record. There is still the odd moment of madness in his United pomp. So he's sent off in 2 successive matches in that 93-94 season. But nothing can prepare the FA disciplinarians for what happens in January 1995. And no, I'm not talking about the Kung Fu kick. So a few days before that infamous night at Selhurst Park, Eric Cantona wandered into a Manchester restaurant and turned his rage on a loyal Upshot listener. Can you believe it?
No.
Of all the people. So this is a letter we received from Wilson.
A letter? What was
Yeah.
it? Did you get it in the post?
Pigeon brought it around. Yeah, I say letter. I think it was a DM we had. A while ago we did something on Cantona, I forget what. And Wilson got in touch with this astonishing story. He said, a few days before the famous Kung Fu kick at Crystal Palace, my shift manager had a birthday meal at a nice restaurant in Manchester. We were sat finishing our meal and the restaurant brought out a big birthday cake. We all got a slice. Just then, Eric Cantona, a lady on his arm, and a bodyguard walked in and sat about 6 yards away on a small table. As they sat down, my mate Ches squashed up his slice of birthday cake into a ball and threw it at Cantona. It hit him on the shoulder. Eric immediately stood up and pointed across at all of us one by one, all 3 blokes sniggering and one, me, appalled. He then sprung up and marched over with the ball of cake in hand and with his minder attempting to stop him. My brother was sat with his back to Cantona and he must have decided it was our kid who was responsible. He pushed my brother's head into his cake and then pulled him back by his hair and planted the ball of cake into his face. All he said was, cake, table, ah. And then he walked back to his lady partner and calmly sat back down. I made us leave shortly afterwards. I mean, is it too good to be true? It's very good.
Yeah, it's a great story.
I believe it. It sounds like they had it coming.
Yeah, I mean, well, not the brother. Poor brother's been caught in the crossfire here, but...
His shift manager's birthday and his brother's there as well. Family business. I do, the mate Ches. Ches is quite a, believable mank name, I think, or nickname.
Ches is the kind of guy who would roll up a ball of cake and throw it at somebody at a restaurant.
It is an amazing story. And I guess it is, the quote is quite Cantona as well.
Cake,
Table.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, he gets away with that cake frenzy. But 3 days later, Eric has a meltdown which will define his career. We all know this so well. It's a midweek game against Palace at Selhurst Park, and in an ill-tempered affair, Eric is sent off. And as he's walking off, hooligan Matthew Simmons runs down 11 rows to the front of the family enclosure. So it's near the tunnel at Selhurst Park. And Simmons begins barking abuse at the Frenchman. He yells, "Fuck off back to France!" and "Your mum is a French whore," according to several witnesses who saw it. I think it's actually a longer tirade, but very much of that flavour. Eric's already furious about the red card, and with those taunts ringing in his ears, he flies in with a kung fu kick on Simmons.
Oh, what's going on here? Cantona's getting involved with some supporters.
I actually prefer the Jonathan Pierce radio commentary. Have you ever heard this?
No.
Yeah, let's have a listen.
Frail side to his temperament, the mad side of genius. Cantona is dismissed. Where can there be a place in the game for a man of such extravagant talent, a man of such wicked temperament, a man who has been quite rightly dismissed, a man who has now jumped. Oh my goodness me! He has kicked, he's punched a fan. Eric Cantona has jumped in and scissor kung fu kick a fan. Manchester United fans are coming across. I have never seen as disgraceful an incident as that in all my years in football. Eric Cantona should be thrown out of the game for that sort of incident. I care not one jot about his supreme talent. He launched himself 6 feet into the crowd and kung fu kicked a supporter who was, without a shadow of a doubt, giving him lip.
That's one of my favourite bits of commentary ever.
So good.
I care not one jot. Oh, so good.
Also-
Mate, where's that Jonathan Pierce now? Like, you hear him commentate now. It's like, Chelsea moving forward and it's a goal.
Yeah, he's
And, like,
lost
that's it.
his-
He's lost his...
Indignation.
Can you imagine being in the car and hearing that on the radio?
It's better than watching it. Genuinely more shocking.
Wow.
It's almost WWE level. Do you remember Jonathan Pierce also around that time was commentating on Robot Wars?
Yeah.
So it's like he's sort of using the tones he usually uses for
I
like
never realised that
Sergeant
was-
Bash. It's like going through someone.
Sir Killalot's got him in the ropes. He's in the pit.
Yeah, not one jot. Definitely the best commentary I've heard of the
Oh,
Cantona.
amazing. That shit's on any Peter Drury
Yeah,
poetry.
fuck. I don't want that like lyrical restrained shit. I want like raw shock. Anyway, United, after 48 hours, ban Cantona for the rest of the season. They're later criticised for taking too long, but I think that's pretty normal. Eric, this obviously utter chaos ensues. The press are all over his house. They're all over Carrington. They're just demanding answers. There's been no statement from Eric Cantona. Everyone's wondering, like, is he ever going to be allowed to play football again? He up sticks and flees the press scrum and goes to Guadeloupe, the French territory in the Caribbean, for a holiday with his wife, who's pregnant. I think he's just like, we need to get away from this like absolute chaos, because they're all camped out on his lawn. But unfortunately for Eric, he is tracked down by ITV News' Terry Lloyd, who, by the way, is a war reporter. I don't know how he got put on this gig.
He's sort of nearing retirement. So.
Yeah, they pulled him out of Bosnia for this.
Either that or they're like, right, this guy's a real live wire. We need to send it up.
Well, you'd be correct about that, because apparently Cantona is sunbathing on the beach with his wife and suddenly notices, like, the sun's gone, and standing in front of the sun is the silhouette of Terry Lloyd and 2 cameramen who later say that they politely ask Mr. Cantona for an interview. Unfortunately, Eric does not respond by giving them a few choice quotes. Instead, he gets Terry Lloyd in a headlock, drags him up the beach, and then kung fu kicks him. So, unfortunately, I've got an excellent account of this from the Sunday People newspaper at the time, who said, in an incredible outburst, the disgraced Frenchman is said to have grabbed father of 2 Terry in a vice-like headlock, drop-kicked the reporter as crew members Mike Inglis and Mark Lyons helped free him, dragged Terry across the beach in front of stunned holidaymakers, demanded the film of him assaulting the 40-year-old Terry. Onlookers claim they heard Cantona, 28, scream, "I will kill you," as he held on to the reporter. Love it.
Such a good account.
The amount of kung fu kicks across this story, we haven't even had the last one, by the way, there's another one coming, a really unexpected one, is truly amazing. Also, again, imagine being on that beach. You're like, oh, it's Eric Cantona, that's not bad. And then you're like, there's some guys with cameras there. And then just, it's the headlock dragging him up the beach, like feet trailing. Terry Lloyd's like arms flailing. And then he just stands him up and drop kicks him. Just coming back to all these kung fu kicks, what an exotic method of punishment to be your like default mode of violence.
Yeah, like in the old James Bond films, like he always seems to default do the karate chop. It's like it's kind of in that vein. It's like he's got his signature move, like on Tekken.
Yeah, but is it that punching someone leaves you more exposed than a drop kick? Why always the drop kick?
I don't know. You probably do more damage with it. It's like if you really wanted to go in and hurt
both
someone.
feet.
Yeah,
He's got strong feet.
Yeah, he's got strong
powerful legs.
He had quite powerful calves anyway, didn't he? That's what gave him that like backlift.
Also, he just loves doing something that's a little bit different.
Yeah,
It's like turning his collar up. His signature move is the kung fu kick.
Well, name another person who has a signature move. It is mental. And a lovely moment in Guadeloupe. So Cantona protests that, like, you know, he's in France with his pregnant wife. He shouldn't be subjected to press intrusion. I think he's got a point.
Yeah, wasn't there another story where the journalists approached him and it said that they approached him while he was waist deep in the sea, like with his 6-month pregnant wife. And it's like, they're like, the furious Frenchman unleashed a message to the world. In 2 words, he said, "Fuck off." It's like, no, he's like on holiday in the sea with his pregnant wife. He told you to fuck off.
They definitely didn't just once ask him politely for an interview. They definitely like persistently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Guadeloupe police destroy the videotape. Which is a nice moment. Eric then pops up on French TV giving an interview in which he's asked about the kung fu kick on the fan and instead starts ranting about the Pope, who he says wears a Rolex and is responsible for the crimes of the church. And then he finishes his speech by saying, "Me? I piss in the ass of the Pope. The same way I piss in the ass of journalists."
Is that a translation?
Yeah. Any French speakers, can they tell us? Is that a standard? Like, I've never heard pissing in someone's ass as like a term of aggression.
I think in those sex clubs of Paris that he frequents, he probably picked up a few tips.
It's such a weird insult. I piss in your ass. Yeah, if anyone is French and knows, is that a common insult? I'd like to know. Anyway, so all this is going down. The FA decide not to punish him for the attack on the journalists. It's outside of their jurisdiction, I guess, Guadeloupe. But I guess they've got enough on their hands anyway. And they do call him back from France for a hearing. And Eric knows that this is going to be bad. People are talking about him being banned for life. And obviously he's facing criminal charges as well. But he still doesn't take the FA hearing seriously at all. So he arrives in London the night before and decides to go out on the piss with Paul Ince, Gazza and Ian Wright.
It's a good night out.
Yeah, I love that. They are pictured staggering out of a nightclub at 4:45 a.m. The hearing's in the morning. It's at like 9. Anyway, so he gets to this hearing. It's all quite stuffy and stuff. And then at some point they say, "Mr. Cantona, would you like to make a statement on your conduct?" And Eric, true to his form in football hearings, he says, "I would like to apologise to my teammates. I want to apologise to the FA. And finally, I would like to apologise to the prostitute who shared my bed last night."
Did he kung fu kick her too?
It's such a weird comment. Like, obviously, he's trying to just say fuck off.
Yeah.
But also, what was his wife making of that sort of shit? His pregnant wife.
He's kind of saying, like, here's my apology, but then also, like, sticking 2 fingers up. Yeah. Like, there's my apology.
Yeah,
like,
basically saying my apology doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I think it's on the spot, and he's like, just say something naughty. Kind of works. It's not quite his most lyrical moment. In the end, the FA banned him for 8 months, which probably quite a good result. Apparently Alex Ferguson's furious because he claims that he had some sort of understanding with the FA that if United banned him quickly, then Eric would just be banned for the rest of the season, which is like 4 months. It wouldn't go into the following season. But I think it's probably a decent deal for all parties, really. Apparently the Premier League were really worried that the kung fu kick would tarnish their image because, like, you know, football was still kind of recovering from the hooliganism era. But actually, subscriptions to Sky Sports spiked to a record high in the week after.
Yeah, I was listening to the Heroes and Humans of Football podcast, and they said that this moment, effectively because the Premier League was so new, it elevated it to a like global audience with people who were sort of like dabbling in English football, like heard about it, that were outside of fans of football, and it just the whole like Cantona's profile exploded. Like it was just also like the fact that the guy who he kung fu kicked was like a prominent right wing hooligan as well. Yeah, like it's quite.
We'll let's talk about it now. So it turns out in the wake of it that Matthew Simmons, he had attended BNP and National Front marches, and he had a previous conviction for a violent robbery in a petrol station in which he tried to hit someone over the head with a spanner, and the guy moved out of the way and got hit in the arm instead. But he could have killed him. So I'm going to go out on a limb and call him a scumbag. We'll come back to his sort of fate as well. But look, obviously I don't condone the violence of it. And there is a kind of nasty side story here that it creates this feud between Man United and Crystal Palace fans, which leads to the death of a Crystal Palace fan in really ugly circumstances. Like, that's all horrible. I think it is a stretch to blame Eric Cantona for that. Obviously, though, like, you can't go around kung fu kicking people who insult you.
Just like, imagine like how many kung fu kicks were committed in playgrounds across Manchester and the surrounding area.
I can remember, like I had a sister, so I was an absolute pussy hole, but my mates who had brothers and would just spend their time like wrestling while I was playing with a Polly Pocket, they were just constantly kung fu kicking each other around this time. I remember it so well, just being like, Cantona! Obviously I was too scared. It was, I guess you're right, it was sort of one of the iconic moments that made the Premier League this, like, and obviously everyone involved has to pretend that they don't want nasty stuff to happen, but like, it's pretty box office. It's probably, do you think it's still the maddest thing that's happened in the Premier League? Like, Aguero's final day goal is mad in footballing terms, but for like going outside of that,
it's got to be. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Anyway, so Cantona's banned for 8 months. He then gets a further fine from the FA when they catch him playing in a behind closed doors practice match with a United shirt on, which is a bit pathetic. Eric has this response for them. He said, "What are they doing during their days at home with their wife? Do they make love with their wife? Do they take pleasure when they make love? I don't think so. They say, Cantona, you can't play with a Man United shirt on, even in your garden. They are excited. It's a big moment in their life." I think he's saying they're sad and have nothing better to do than ban me. But
yeah, so he was effectively like having a kickabout.
I think it might have been like a United training session.
Right.
It does seem unnecessarily petty. But I like how he makes it about their sex life. Kind of sounds like he's about to say, well, I slept with their wife. Anyway, so he's clashing with the FA, but he's on his ban. He still has to go to court, of course, because he's being charged with criminal charges. And in court, he is on trial alongside Matthew Simmons, who's also facing charges. Simmons, as we've talked before on this pod, delivers one of the all-time defences. He claims that actually he was just on the way to the toilet and all he said was, "It's an early bath for you, Mr. Cantona." It's my favourite defence ever in court.
Yeah. Has anyone ever said that?
You're jolly well going off. Simmons' defence, I think, is pretty laughable even at the time. Eric gets given 2 weeks in jail. He's found guilty of assault. So he's handed this 2-week jail sentence and taken straight to the cells. But United managed to bail him out pending his appeal. But apparently he spends 3 hours inside the cells while United's lawyers are like scrabbling to get his appeal in so they can bail him. Matthew Simmons is also found guilty. He dodges jail and is given a £500 fine and a 1-year stadium ban. But there's still time for one moment of mental courtroom drama as Simmons, furious at the guilty verdict, turns on the prosecuting lawyer and strangles him. And I've actually got a courtroom sketch of it here showing Simmons holding this guy behind his back, strangling him as another lawyer tries to pull him off. And he's not done there. He pushes the lawyer away and then, spotting Eric Cantona's lawyer, launches a kung fu kick. I cannot believe that happened.
Wow.
Why is everyone kung fu kicking?
Was there just like an epidemic of kung fu kicks in the 90s?
I guess like those movies were quite big.
Was like Jackie Chan movies big then?
Yeah.
That was 90s.
I think it was, again, it was the drop kick where you go on both feet and you jump in the air. Why was that specifically? Wrestling, I guess, was quite big around then.
It's the craziest sweep of the nation.
Or do you think he'd gone in being like, I'm going to give them a fucking
See how
It was
they
like it was like happy slaps in the early 2000s.
catches like wildfire. And what I love is then Simmons, for that, does get a week in jail and a further £700 fine. Idiot. I've read some interviews with him subsequently. Like, he lives quite a quiet life now, but there was one in 2004 where The Guardian tracked him down, and he's still, like, unapologetic. He says he can't remember what he said to Cantona. He still wants an apology.
He's been waiting a long time.
Yeah, it's a fucking...
I'd like to apologise to Michael Simmons. I'd like to apologise to the prostitutes that shared my bed last night.
Eric, of course, does successfully appeal the jail sentence and gets his sentence reduced to 120 hours community service. And then finally, he speaks to the press. He hasn't spoken on the incident this whole time. But 4 months on from the original kick, the press finally turn up to this press conference to get answers from Eric Cantona. And he sits down and delivers his famous speech.
When the seagulls follow trawler, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
He doesn't explain it for ages. Obviously, it's a metaphor for the press following him around. But quite recently, he said, like, oh, it just came to me in the moment. But then I read possibly Ned Kelly or someone else's account said that just before the press conference, he was with a pen and paper and he was like, what are the name of the birds by the sea? And what is the name of the boat? So I reckon you got to come in with that line a bit planned, haven't you?
Especially the way he delivers it so poised and it's
fucking
it's a good line. It's a good line.
Name another person in sport who would have delivered a line like that.
It's another real power move to just go in, say one line and just say thank you and just walk out.
Because apparently United really pressured it. He was like, I'm not doing a fucking press conference. And they were like, you have to. And that's what they got from him. Genius.
It's like I also like read with Cantona as well, because it like just with his time at United, because he was just such a live wire, like impossible to control. Like Ferguson, who was a renowned disciplinarian and had every other player under his thumb, he's just let Cantona get on with it and like wouldn't ever discipline him. Apparently after the Kung Fu kick, because I think Man U lost that game against Crystal Palace, didn't they? They got and they were back in the dressing room and obviously like all manner of hell was breaking loose, but he was like laying into like Cole being like, you lost your man, you didn't listen to my instructions. And then he turns to Cantona and just went, Eric, you can't be doing that. That was all he said.
But it's true, he just let him, which was actually genius, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, Cantona never really has much of a career with France, right? Because he falls out with the managers and nowhere else it works out. So is that basically the secret, is that Ferg, obviously it was in a great team, but Fergie basically was just like, I'm just going to let him be the main man.
It will say, apparently Fergie's rule of just getting the best out of Eric was just to always agree with him. So he'd be like, yeah, you're right, absolutely right.
I did deserve it, to be fair.
It's so ironic because he's such a famous taskmaster to everyone else. Can it be doing that?
There was another account where there was this ball and he used to be very strict on like dress code. So the United players was like, right lads, black tie, want your shoes shine, like all of this. And everyone arrived in like immaculate black tie tuxedos with bow ties and whatnot. And Eric just turns up and apparently he's wearing this white suit, bright red Nike trainers. And he's like, apparently everyone's just like, what the fuck? Like, Eric's in for a bollocking. And then apparently Ferguson just turned around and went, no, that's style. Completely just like teacher's pet.
You know, there's similar with Harry Redknapp and Paolo Di Canio. He was like, I just had to pander to him. And so in training, apparently Di Canio would like shoot and it would go wide and Harry would give it as a goal. And he'd be like, it's Paolo, got to keep him sweet for Saturday.
So good.
Obviously, Eric then returns for United after his 8-month ban and leads them to another double. So they win the league. He captains them in the FA Cup final against Liverpool, in which he scores a fantastic volley, and they win that as well. So very quickly he's sort of restored to his perch. And they win the league the following season as well, the 96-7 season, which means they won the league with Eric Cantona every season except for the Kung Fu Kick season. And he's obviously won it previously with Leeds and Marseille. So I think he wins something like 6 consecutive league titles.
Wow.
Mental record. But then just as that 97 season is ending, he shocks the footballing world by announcing at the young age of 30 that Eric Cantona is retiring from football. Bombshell. I remember it so clearly, just being like, what the fuck? I think he basically said, I always wanted to go out on the top and I'm tired. I think he was tired of the like press relationship as much as anything else. But it is a bit of a what if, you know, some players play for another 5 years. He was probably never going to do that, but...
He said that he wanted to quit the second that he stopped improving. So he was like at the peak of his powers, sort of walk
I was
away
reading
from it.
news reports from the time and people were saying like his form hasn't been what it was. But like players have dips. And you wonder like, would he have been in that treble winning team?
Yeah. Also, like this would have been just before France in the World Cup as well, right?
Yeah, but
True.
he gets dropped for Euro 96, doesn't play in it, and he and David Ginola and one other player I can't remember never played for France again. So he's kind of already in the wilderness with France
Got you.
because he fell out with a lot of players. You know, he famously calls Didier Deschamps, the current France manager, the water carrier. Basically says he's shit.
The most successful French manager. Of all
Yeah,
time,
but as a
won the World
player,
Cup.
you know how Deschamps is like a sort of Jordan Henderson, isn't he? He's like
Yeah.
hard-working, recycles possession, and Cantona has no time for it.
What is industry?
It is a shame it never really clicks with him in France. I think they just think he's a cunt.
I think he's not as popular in France as he is here, or such a sort of iconic character.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the best years of his football career here as well. So
He's more known as an actor in France, which we will come to. Actually, there's a charming letter he receives from Alex Ferguson in August 97. So just at the start of the new season after he's retired. It's quite a long letter, so I won't read it all out, but I'll link to it. It's very heartfelt. But he says, Eric, when we restarted training, I kept waiting for you to turn up as normal. But I think that was in hope, not realism, as I knew in your eyes when we met at Mottram, your time at Man United was over. It's quite like what an ex might write to someone. Do you know what I mean? I kept thinking you'd show up. And then he ends, as I close this letter, you are always welcome here. And if you just pop in unexpectedly for a cup of tea, no fanfare, just for a chat as friends, that would mean more to me than anything. So he's basically in love with him, like as a player and as a colleague. Because I guess he was probably the most special. I don't know how he ranks the special talents he managed. I guess Ronaldo kind of usurps him.
I mean, he's got to be up there, hasn't he?
And you think like Fergie hadn't won the league before Cantona arrived.
In terms of like influence on football, he's definitely the like he was the. I was reading some journalists described him as the first player to ever like play in the hole. You know, that sort of like advanced 10 sort of
rather
number
than
9.
just a little and large 2 up front.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, you have
And
someone linking up.
He was the first player to sort of like play these sort of diagonal balls to the wings and, you know, bring the kind of continental style over to the Premier League. So
Yeah.
I like, and obviously he was just an absolute character as well. So I think definitely the most influential.
do you think that letter was Fergie trying to plant the seed to Eric that he could come back if he wanted to?
Yeah, I
or-
was wondering that because he's only 30 and it's like been 2 months.
Yeah.
Probably.
But at the same time, I think it is just like a genuine.
Love
He wants.
letter.
Yeah, it's a love letter. Like he does want to be friends with Eric. So after retirement, Eric moves with his family to Barcelona, and one of the first people who goes to visit him there is Ned Kelly, his old friend, the United security guard. And you know, on paper, this sounds like quite a nice idea. You know, it's two old friends reconnecting in a new city. Maybe Eric will show him around the Sagrada Familia or take him for a stroll in Park Güell. But in fact, Eric had a slightly different itinerary in mind. So this is an extract from Ned's book, Ned's tell-all book. After finishing our drinks, we left the bar and Eric drove us to a seedier part of town. "Follow me, Ned," Eric said, heading for a lift. 3 floors later, he was knocking at an apartment door that opened to reveal wall-to-wall hookers. The women were absolutely stunning and wore numbered badges.
God.
It was like a kinky pick and mix. Eric chose his girl and I mine, and the ladies led us to adjoining rooms where the fun began. Recalling various carnal discussions that I shared with Eric over the years, I knew he had a penchant for slapping women's bottoms. And from the noises coming from the room next door, it sounded as though this lady had been particularly naughty.
I'm not convinced there's a girl in there with Ned. I think he's possibly
He's got a cup to the wall.
listening in with a cup to the wall. He's into Cantona.
I can't make my mind up about Ned Kelly. So when we first discovered his book, it was like, oh, I love Ned Kelly.
Thank you, Ned.
Just thank you, Ned, for giving us this. But there's quite a lot of moments that he comes across as just quite sleazy and
Yeah, it was the 90s.
a bit. Yeah. I mean, he has also just completely stitched up. The guy who he describes as like his best mate. He's now told this.
Although, is he his best friend, or do they strictly go sort of brassing together? It just seems to be like, carnal discussions, and all they seem to do is go out shagging.
Yeah.
The numbered badges is a depressing
It's very-
detail, isn't it?
horrible,
Also, he
yeah.
describes it as pick and mix, but with the number sort of more like bingo. Or,
Or, you know, when you have to hook those rubber ducks at the fair, they've got numbers on them. It's certainly objectifying.
Yeah, it's horrible. Ned also reveals in his book that Cantona used to borrow his flat to shag one of his United teammates' wives.
oh shit, he doesn't reveal.
No, so he doesn't reveal who it was, but he says that he always saw her car outside his house, and that Eric had then admitted to him what had gone on.
Well, because Eric needs a shag pad.
Yeah.
A la George Best. But what, he uses Ned's house?
He uses Ned's
He wasn't exactly keeping it very secret from Ned then, if he was doing it in his house.
Yeah.
Wonder who it was.
I know, he doesn't say.
Posh.
The only one I can think of is Posh.
It's definitely
but-
not Posh.
not
Yeah.
Posh.
Too early. Posh.
Oh yeah, true.
I hope it's not like, David May or something. at least do it to someone.
Who's Steve Bruce's lovely wife, Janet?
Yeah, it could be. It's definitely not Janet,
No.
just to be clear. Again,
Jordan.
again
Dwight York.
stitching him up there.
Yeah. He's just constantly stitching him
I
up.
think they fell out.
I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Probably just had books to sell.
Yeah. Maybe this is a mystery that Ned Kelly will take to his grave.
Yeah, if you're listening now.
Or until Penguin come back with a bigger offer.
That's how it was Penguin who published that book.
Around this time, Eric also comes out and says that he respects Maradona for his cocaine use. So it's basically part of a conversation where he's comparing Maradona to sports people that take performance-enhancing drugs. So he says, there's a misunderstanding with Maradona. I prefer somebody who takes cocaine on a Wednesday and plays football at the weekend, plays well and wins. He can be proud of himself and of his team, and he can look himself in the mirror. I respect people who don't use drugs, but I would respect Maradona more than somebody who uses drugs just to win matches.
I see what you're saying.
I think it's a fair
I think
point.
we've made similar points on this podcast,
Mm.
which is you should obviously be helped to stop taking it, but you shouldn't be banned. It's not a performance enhancer, it's the opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
And Maradona is impressive in that respect.
It might actually be another Maradona that Eric is idolizing, though, because we talked in our Maradona episode about Diego's son, Diego Jr., who was very much later recognized by Maradona, and then led Napoli to their first ever. What was it called?
Scudetto
of the Sand.
They won the beach football title.
Their first ever beach football title, the Scudetto of the Sand. And Eric takes up beach football after his retirement. So after his retirement, there was some expectation that he might go into management, which it would kind of make sense. He's obviously hot-headed, but he's very intelligent. He's got a good football mind, charismatic, and apparently Fergie was open to the idea. So he'd had this 2-week stint lined up with Fergie. I guess it's sort of like a work experience, lined up at Man United, but he pulls out of it at the last minute and never goes into coaching, and instead takes the slightly lower stakes route of getting really into beach football. So shortly after leaving United, he became captain of the French beach soccer team, who his brother played for already, a bit like Maradona Jr.
Yeah, that's what you do if you're the middle child.
But I think Cantona quite enjoyed it. It was the two of them traveling around the world, playing in these tournaments, and he was really good. They won. I mean, he was a professional footballer, now playing with jobbing beach.
Because there are beach specialists, aren't there?
Yeah, there are.
Also known as shit footballers. Actually, they're probably really good.
But yeah, he won the European Championship and the World Cup with France. and then managed them until 2011. But even on the sun-drenched beaches of the Balearics, there were flashes of Eric's old temper. So he's playing a match against Spain in Mallorca, and apparently the fans are like abusing him from the stands the whole game, like throwing missiles.
The ultras.
Which the ultras.
It's like Galatasaray all over again.
Yeah.
All in their swimming trunks.
Yeah, I find it quite hard to square. Like,
Or they throwing at him buckets and spades.
just throwing like cornettos,
Ice creams.
and the flake from their 99. But anyway, Eric eventually snaps and jumps over the fence into the crowd, onto the beach, onto the wider beach, starts trying to attack fans.
Kung Fu kick?
I reckon if he got close enough, he probably would have done, but security managed to drag him away.
Security at beach football.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether beach soccer is actually a bigger deal than
maybe in
we
countries
know.
that actually have sun.
Yeah, he did play on Brighton Beach one time, Eric Cantona, in a tournament.
On the stones. Is there a
I
sandy
guess
a bit?
I mean, now they have a sandy beach volleyball, but I imagine
must have put
they
sand
put
down,
some
yeah.
sand down.
I think if you're in a hot country, it's probably a bigger deal. It's like why we don't care about the Winter Olympics, because we don't have the snow for it.
Yeah,
Speak for yourself, Jack.
You're a big luge head, actually, aren't you? I forgot about
Massive
that.
luge.
Curling.
get into curling. Yeah. Anyway, in 2019, Cantona was named 4th on the all-time list of beach soccer stars.
Okay. I feel like they could be making more of beach football as a sort of, like Gerard Piqué's got that lame, like, five-a-side league where you can, like, I don't know, you can, like, push a button and then your opponents get gunged and stuff. I don't really know what happens. It's that vibe, isn't it? It's a game
YouTubers
show.
thing, yeah.
They could do beach football could be quite good. You remember, like, Legends football used to be on Sky. If you were off school and you had Sky, you could watch Legends football and it would just be like Gary McAllister playing five-a-side.
This is before the time of like proper wages.
Yeah,
football.
yeah, so they had to.
They
Had
had to.
to go and play at the NEC Birmingham to just get a living in retirement. But I feel like that with meets the beach could be quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would be the gunging equivalent on beach football?
Yeah, you get put in the sea, thrown in. It'd be good-natured stuff. But like get Ronaldinho in that and stuff.
Yeah. Ronaldinho do that, I reckon.
Yeah.
He pops up everywhere.
A lot of the Brazilian stars started with beach football, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's why they're so kind of like skillful.
And they do futsal as well, don't they? So they're good with the small ball.
Yeah, heavy
Yeah.
ball and stuff.
Yeah, I've actually been playing with one recently because my son's got a kid's ball and I am more skillful.
Anyway, back to Eric. When he's not banging in goals on the Copacabana, he is honing his new passion for acting. So he'd actually already acted in a film while he was serving his Kung Fu kick ban. So he played a rugby player in a French film. But after retiring, he really throws himself into it. So he plays a few different roles. In one of them, he wears a fat suit and plays a 25-stone Marseille detective who falls in love with a murderer and has 2 years to live unless he slims.
Whoa.
Actually sounds quite good. I
Isn't
haven't
it
seen
called The
but-
Overeater?
The Overeater, yeah. Another one, he straps on a prosthetic penis and plays a character called the Stud.
Oh, yeah.
In a film that critics describe as softcore porn.
I've seen a still of it and it's him in some Y fronts and a woman in like riding gear because I guess the Stud is a horse
Yeah.
pun. Is just sort of like inspecting him.
Yeah, it was
They're all
strange.
quite weird, aren't they?
Quite French cinema.
Yeah, they're quite sort of like dreamlike, the bits that I've seen of these films.
There's another film that he stars in called Mookie, and he co-stars alongside a chimp. Have you seen this one?
No.
Right.
So, far away from their native France, two men are in trouble in a Mexican town. One is gentle missionary monk brother Benoit. The other is tough, stubborn boxer Antoine Capella, played by Cantona. Brother Benoit saved a chimp he calls Mookie and made his pet, but it's a talking monkey, which is why a group of scientists want to take it away from him. I mean, it sounds like a roller coaster,
like it.
but apparently the French critics at the time suggested that the chimp was a more expressive actor than Eric.
I have heard he's basically only good in sort of moody cameos.
Yeah. Or when he plays himself. So his big hit is Looking for Eric, the 2009 Ken Loach film. And Eric plays himself and he's sort of giving this like philosophical life advice to this postman who's kind of in the middle of a life crisis. And it gets nominated for a Palme d'Or. So
Is that good?
That's-
I never really know.
Yeah,
it's,
it's like
one of
arty.
the prestigious film awards.
Yeah, like Arty Cinema Awards, independent.
Yeah. But I mean, he is playing himself. So.
Giving life advice. Do I want life advice from Eric Cantona?
So is it acting if you're playing yourself?
Yeah.
More recently, he's dabbled in a bit of music. So he's released some of his own stuff and also popped up in the video for a Liam Gallagher song a few years ago.
It's Once, isn't it, the song? Yeah.
Once,
Yeah.
Liam
The
Gallagher.
name of the song, yeah.
Yeah, and Liam gives a pretty good account of filming this video with Eric.
We asked him would he be in it, and he said yeah. So I said, how much money do you fucking want to be in it? And he went, I do not want nothing. I said, but I'll give you something. I do not want nothing. So right, let us know what fucking flight you want. I will get my own flight. I was going, we'll get the fucking flight. What hotel do you want? I do not want a hotel. So, where the fuck are you gonna fucking stay? You must want, we'll get you a car to pick you up from the fucking, get you a sleeping bag. I bring my own sleeping bag. We'll get you a car to pick you up from the fucking airport to the thing. I will get my own fucking car. We've got catering. You don't want that, do you? I bring my own fucking catering. So anyway, that was all he did. He sat there and he drunk his fucking wine, done the video, fucked off, and that was it. See you later. Goodbye, my English friend.
That's so good. He even does the Cantona mouth when he's telling us.
He's such a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Gallagher.
I've got fucking catering. You want some of that?
You're not going to want any of that, are you? That's great. Good song as well, Once.
A match made in heaven there.
Yeah, although
Yeah,
Liam's
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
a City fan, but I guess kindred spirits.
I think Cantona like transcends
Yes,
sort of like
agreed.
derbies. He wham into the Stone Roses as well. I remember
really?
in the there's a documentary when the Stone Roses got back together, directed by Shane Meadows, and Cantona pops up backstage just with a glass of wine with a fag on, just like in the dressing room with like Ian Brown. It was like the coolest, coolest little snapshot.
Yeah.
I think another thing we haven't really mentioned is that Cantona is pretty political for his whole career. He's very anti-capitalist, especially. Never actually gets into politics, although he does make one ill-fated attempt to overthrow the global banking system. So in 2010, in the wake of the financial crisis, Eric Cantona calls on people to withdraw all of their cash from banks on the same day.
So like Tyler Durden from Fight Club.
Yeah, sadly it doesn't catch on. Apparently Eric called up his bank and asked about it, but they informed him that he could only take out 1,500 euros at one go.
I want it all
Yeah.
now.
And he didn't even show up to do that. So
I love it. It's great revolution.
the revolution that
thwarted.
never was. Yeah.
Thwarted by withdrawal limits.
We could all be living in a socialist utopia right now if it wasn't for those pesky withdrawal limits at BNP Paribas.
Why does he want a bank run? I guess he just wants to bring it all down.
Yeah. That kind of brings us up to now. Eric, do you remember he popped up at the Champions League draw in 2019? They were presenting him with this like Lifetime Achievement Award, and he gave a very weird speech.
Have you seen this? It's so good.
The recipient of the 2019 President's Award. What's going on through your mind right now?
As flies to wanton boys, we are for the goats. They kill us for the sport. Soon the science will not only be able to slow down the aging of the cells, soon the science will fix the cells to the state. And so we become eternal. Only accidents, crimes, war will still kill us. But unfortunately, crimes and wars will multiply. I love football. Thank you.
Who is that in the middle?
It's Pavel Nedved.
Yeah, Pavel Nedved just looking. Is that him in the middle?
Oh no, not in the middle.
One in the middle. Look at his face. I really recognise it.
My favourite part is when it cuts to Ronaldo and Messi who are just there, just like just confused, sort of blank expression. Just like,
And also when it first
alarm.
cuts wider to the guy presenting with the award, and the guy's just holding the award, staring at him like, what? What's going through your mind at the moment?
I mean, he's like, you asked.
Yeah.
He keeps on going. He's like, they are the goats who are killed for the sport. And then there's a pause. That's it. And he's like, and then there are wars. And he just keeps on
I think
going.
he's saying soon we'll be able to live forever, but there'll still be war, and they'll become more common. But at the beginning is a line from King Lear, apparently. As flies to wanton boys, we are for the gods.
I just love how the contrast with this like bland UEFA corporate event, and then Cantona's there with his like long beard and a beret and just like unironed shirt and jeans. Just
Is that his motive going in? He's like, I'm gonna fucking
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
What is his motive?
He looks like a sort of French shepherd.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
just
yeah.
wandered in.
yeah.
Where the guy, what's on your mind? Well, if you must.
And then at the end of this like meandering speech, he just goes, I love football. To cap it all off.
Why doesn't he get more
Amazing.
punditry gigs?
Because of that.
Yeah, I want that. Like a lot of, do you know what I mean? They'll put most people up on MNF. Get Eric.
Yeah, I mean, rating. Like just seeing Carragher next to Cantona. So, Eric, what does he think of that? Well,
As flies to wanton boys.
Yeah, it's great. I think he should get into poetry as well if he's not already.
I think he is, isn't he? He
Is
released
he?
a song last year.
The Friends We
Yeah.
Lost.
Yeah,
he,
it's all right.
He premiered it on Michael McIntyre's big show. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I didn't know he premiered it on that. It's all a bit weird.
Yeah.
It's quite good, isn't it?
It's all right, yeah. If you can get over the fact that it's Eric Cantona.
Anyway, I thought we'd end with a quote that Eric gave when he was asked to reflect on his career and especially on that famous kung fu kick. So this was an interview a few years ago. He said, I have one regret. I would love to have kicked him even harder.
That was like last year or something.
Yeah, he's still thinking about it.
You think some people will be like, well, I'm older now and I feel a bit...
Do you think you'd seen Matthew Simmons' Twitter posts in the past couple of years and be like, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, what a place to end it. I mean, I would say past verdict, is he a wrong un? But I think I know where we're landing on that one.
No, he's
Quite violent. Do you think it'd be fun being like married to him? He's remarried subsequently.
never be a dull moment with there.
Yeah, I mean, probably there were low moments when Ned Kelly released his book and you discovered
Maybe that
what
was
he'd been up
between
to.
his marriages, so it was fair game.
Yeah.
Do you think it's like he's sort of this like mercurial, sulking hothead every day? Or do you think he's actually quite normal most of the time?
No, I
or do you
think
think like you run out of milk and you get a fucking line from King Lear being quoted at you?
I think he's like it all the time. It's like I've got mates like, well, not like mates like Eric, but like who are really just intense and just unapologetically themselves and like admire him massively for it. But then ultimately they are fucking hard work.
I don't think I know anyone like that.
But yeah, no, I think he's an absolute legend, and the world needs more people like Eric Cantona.
Sport fucking does, for sure. I guess this is the thing, his childhood in this sort of like bohemian family running in the woods, like, I don't know what he was doing in those woods, drop kick. Practicing his drop kick.
Shooting birds, that's what he's doing.
Oh, shooting birds, yeah. And practicing his drop kicks. Like, that is a childhood that people don't have who get to the top of football now. They're just hothousey. I guess you don't get that. Could someone break into football like that? I guess, like, you know, your Vardy route in is the way you're going to get a character like that. But
Yeah, I mean, like just like that bohemian lifestyle doesn't go hand in hand with football. Really, can you think of a single bohemian footballer nowadays?
I mean, David James does his poems.
Yeah,
doesn't
David
he?
James was.
What, does he do
painter.
poems? I imagine.
He paints as well. He does all sorts.
Yeah. And modelling.
David James is probably the last of them I can think of.
Yeah, I still wouldn't put him quite in the same category as Eric Cantona. And obviously it helps that the type of player Cantona was flair and violent.
Yeah.
So-
He never considers himself a footballer. He thinks of himself as an artist. Even when he was playing football, he was like, my job was to entertain, was to express myself, which is probably why he never made it as a goalie.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Not many
But
opportunities.
they are mental.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, if you're picking like an iconic moment, we didn't really talk about it, but the chip followed by the shrug,
Yeah.
for me, captures everything that's just so fucking appealing.
I think getting a journalist in a headlock on a Guadeloupe beach, leading him up and then drop kicking
Yeah, and actually,
in
I got
front
to
of
say,
stunned beachgoers.
the rotating bed for me, for the more libertine side. Yeah,
It's a roller coaster.
it really is. All right, well, thanks a lot. If you enjoyed that, we would love it if you shared it with your friends and WhatsApp groups, post on social media, wherever, or leave us a review. We like getting reviews when they're 5 stars. And don't mention our accents or our hair.
Or footballing ability.
Yeah, you know, all that stuff. If you could desist calling me a virgin, that'd be great. So yeah, please leave us a review and tune in next time. George, thanks a lot.
Oh, mate, my pleasure. That was a lot of fun.
Let's
One
not
of
leave
my
it so
favourites.
long next time.
I'm always available. I'll fire up the sock puppets and hopefully I'll be able to come a bit more. But no, that was great.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. And Zach, thanks a lot.
Thank you. That was fun.
See you next time. Thanks a lot.